Yeah, I know. I'm a dick. I have no patience. I don't suffer fools. I try to use logical inference. I try to reason people in. But when it is clear that they don't care what logic or facts or reality or truth is, I kind of lose it. I get it. Quit telling me that I need. You do this shit for 25 years and see how patient you are. Hello, puppies and kittens. Once again, I'm speaking with Angelos, and we've had a conversation or two before, as I remember, I think, vaguely remember. So, clue me in. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aron. It's a
Hmm.
blessing to be here and give me your time to share with you. And yeah, thanks. I know our last debate or dialogue was a little bit squirrely, and but it's an honor to chat with you. So thanks for having me. I think the original thesis that I was trying to present in our first sort of dialogue, which kind of got lost track there, but the original thesis that we were kind of heading towards was the idea that God was a necessary foundation for science and human knowledge, and that was kind of the premise that I believe you obviously took issue with, and that we were going to
Oh, of
discuss.
course.
Right.
Yeah. Why would I have to believe in a magic invisible man? What impact would that possibly have on whether we can know what we know? It has no impact at all.
Yeah. So I guess the first thesis that it's kind of a twofold thesis, and the first part kind of rested on a uh, a truth that maybe you or your listeners maybe haven't heard of, but the idea that it was actually Christian doctrine that gave rise to modern science. I know that
Oh, okay. Well, I got to correct that right away, especially when you're
Mhm.
going to call it truth, because Christian doctrine had fuck all to do with the establishment of science. Christian doctrine actually stands against science, and it doesn't matter if you want to start with the Ionian Greeks, like 6 centuries BCE, or if you start with the Enlightenment with people who were admittedly in Christian dominated countries, and most of them were Christian to some degree. The science was only permitted because the church was beginning to loosen its grip of complete control over mind and thought.
Yeah, so that's kind of what you're presenting right now is typically been called like the warfare thesis, and the idea that religion and science are kind of at odds. But actually, in academia now, most philosophers and historians of science have to actually admit that Christian doctrine, especially the doctrine of creation, believe it or not, played the foundational role in the birth of modern science. And
I, I
yeah.
would actually agree that
Mhm.
challenging, confronting, and disproving various aspects of creationism did contribute quite a bit to scientific endeavor and thought. But doctrine absolutely did not. No part.
Mhm.
It is doctrine actually prohibits scientific exploration and discovery and methodology. So can't make that claim. Nor can you make the claim that a majority of philosophers have stated or state now. Certainly not now. If you go back a couple of hundred years, maybe. But if you can't say that a majority of philosophers and so forth and scientists state now that Christian doctrine has anything to do with the foundation, because what you're saying is something that would be demonstrable. You could be able to show it, and there isn't a doctor, there isn't verses you could cite or history that is concordant with that would support your position.
Sure. Well, yeah, let's maybe get into that a little bit because, like I said, maybe you're not familiar with the current kind of literature around, the philosophy or history of science in terms of science vis-a-vis religion. But
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the history of science.
sure.
That's where you want to go.
Well,
Okay.
not necessarily the history of science per se, but the history of science and religion. So
Yeah,
there.
I've only taken like one or two courses in the
Mhm.
history of world religions. What do I know?
Okay,
So you're
so
right. I don't know anything about the thing I've been studying for 25 years.
okay, well, I don't want to get off track here, but maybe you could just tell me what you think the birth of modern science actually was composed of. When do you think modern science, uh, began? Maybe you could just tell me your thoughts on how that took place.
Well, maybe I just did. I mean, I
Or do you
just did.
do you
I,
believe? Can I ask what your thoughts on the scientific revolution are then? What are your thoughts? What spurred on the scientific
I told
revolution?
you can go back to the Ionian Greeks, who were atheists around 600 BCE, and you can also go to the Enlightenment, and you can see the development in the history of science of people who lived in predominantly Christian countries, some of whom were even theologians. But in every case, these people had to challenge their own belief systems to make any discoveries at all. Very often, the church would suppress or repress or oppress anything that seemed damaging to doctrine. But fortunately, during the time of Catholic reign, where there weren't Catholicism didn't allow people to read the Bible the way that the Protestant in the Protestant years did. So we didn't have quite the same conflict that
Hmm.
you did during Catholic reign. But there were some scientists whose discoveries were squelched, who were inhibited by their religious belief system, or that their faith was. I'm trying to think of the specific names because each of the scientists that people often name, you'll say, well, this guy was a creationist. Yeah. And he's contradicting creation. Or he wasn't a creationist, he was a Christian, but he's contradicting creation in his studies. And there was just a time when the church wasn't being quite so oppressive in its control of mind
Hmm.
and thought and would allow people to publish certain things until it became too damaging.
Hmm. Well, I'll just kind of state, you talked about the Ionian Greeks. Do you think they were atheists?
Well, by virtue of the fact that they say they don't believe in any gods, that would make them atheists, yes.
Okay, so which Ionian Greeks are you referring to? Are you referring to Talus or Anaximander, or which? There's a bunch of them. So which guys?
I know.
Yeah.
I think Anaximander was one, and obviously not all of them were
Hmm.
atheists, but largely. I think
Hmm.
Democritus, and I'm pretty sure Anaximander was. But they're typically portrayed as questioning the existence of of gods, the gods, and
Hmm.
establishing that things were not based on mysteries,
Yeah. Sorry if
that the
I'm looking
universe
down.
was
It's
knowable.
right. Sorry. Yeah, if I'm looking down, it's because I didn't set up my screen properly. I'm just starting to get into apologetics online ministry, and that's why I'm thankful that you're taking the time to chat with me. But
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Most of the people that come on don't have the balls to even be on camera,
okay.
so it
Well,
doesn't matter.
yeah, thanks again, though. But so just going back to the Ionian Greeks. Um, so Talus, usually in kind of the history of science, most kind of textbooks will start off with Talus or Tales regarding however you want to pronounce that, Thales. He
Hmm.
lived on Ionia, the Greek island, and so he's usually credited as being kind of the first scientist, but he was like pretty animistic, pretty pagan, right? Like he believed that the stars were essentially gods, and lightning. I don't have the exact quotes in front of me, but he definitely wasn't an atheist. He definitely thought that certain celestial objects were gods, and that you could attribute divinity to a lot of the natural world. Same with Anaximander. He was also definitely not an atheist. He, along with many of the pre-Socratics, believe that in the logos, kind of the same theme of the idea in the Bible that people talk about, with this underlying order, this rationality that governs the universe. The only people that we can kind of credit atheism to back in ancient Greek philosophy is, like you said, Democritus or Leucippus. And, you know, so that's kind of the only real true. We don't even know if they really were atheists, but a lot of them.
Yeah, and even when you get into the European, into the Enlightenment age,
Mhm,
there were very few people who declared themselves to be atheist.
mhm,
But that doesn't matter. Okay, what the issue is, you made the claim that doctrine
Mhm.
started science. Clearly, it did not. If you're gonna make a claim, you should back the claim, and
Mhm.
you can't back this one
Well, I
because
can't. Yeah.
you can't do the scriptural citation because the scripture actually contradicts that idea. And the few scientists, as I said, they most of them in European had started out as believers. Many of them were lifelong believers, but they were not creationists. Some of them, very few of them, actually were creationists and still held on to ideas like alchemy and that sort of thing because nobody's perfect, but they're coming around. And unfortunately, the earliest couple of atheists I can think of were not also scientists, but then science was in the 16 and 1700s was barely a practice either. It's just developing.
Okay.
But now think about this. In order for Christianity, in order for Christian doctrine to have established science,
Mhm.
one, in my field of having studied this exact topic for as long as I have,
Mhm.
I'm wondering why nobody's ever been able to justify such a wild claim as that. Just up to now, it's just been never the case. So,
Sure. Well,
first of all, there would have to be something that's verifiably true
right.
about Christianity. Christianity would have to contradict everything it teaches. I mean,
Mhm.
like where Jesus reprimands Thomas because you believe because you've seen evidence, but blessed is he who has not seen and yet believe, because they wanted blind believers. They want people to believe what they're told because they're told to. Jesus then went on and says, you shall not put the Lord your God to the test, denying that you can apply scientific methodology. They didn't have scientific methodology. They had to adopt that separate from the church and independent of doctrine because it contradicts doctrine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a common assumption, right? But I mean, I could make the case that the Bible encourages us to ask questions. It encourages us to challenge actually people when they speak. You know, there's various verses where
And what
God.
happens? What happens when you do? Let's say let's say the Bible doesn't say
Mhm.
that if you blasphemy, heresy, and apostasy are capital crimes, and that you should kill even your own brother if they commit any of these things. Let's just forget that the Bible repeatedly says things like that, and let's pretend for a moment that it doesn't say all those things so that you could pretend to have a case. Where are you going to go from there?
Sorry, I got lost there for a second. Can you repeat the
Okay,
question?
so
I
you
kind of want
have
to
to
go back to the
believe,
science
right?
thing. Yeah.
That's the whole issue with Christianity.
Hmm.
You have to believe. It doesn't matter if you're a good or bad person.
Hmm.
All that matters is what or whether you believe. That's it. That's all. So you can ask questions all you want to, but if you doubt the existence of God, if you declare that the Holy Ghost is not a thing, that's an unforgivable sin. It says that at least 3 times in the Gospels. So, oh yeah, you're allowed to ask questions, only certain questions, and certain other questions will get you killed, or they'll get you damned. You'll suffer punishment in this life and then in the next one as well.
Well,
So, in nowhere does the Bible ever say that quote that I'm sad to say was erroneously posted to Siddhartha Gautama, where you question everything and hold only to that which you can verify to be true. No, the Bible encourages the very opposite of that throughout, consistently, always. You don't test anything. You
well,
believe what you're told because you're told to. And if you don't believe, you're damned. The threat of a fate worse than death, that's it. You're going to be tortured mercilessly forever by a being that is completely unjust.
sorry. So, yeah, that's again another kind of common, not even common. I don't know if I've even heard that before, but thanks for sharing again. I would respond by saying that in the book of Acts, there was a group of people. I'm sure you've heard of them, the Bereans, and they were commended for their inquiry. They're searching out the scriptures to see if what Paul was saying was true. In the book of Isaiah, God commends people to come and reason with him, to use your mental capacities to search things out. And
But they're not doing it in a critical way. They're
Well,
doing it in a way of reinforcement, reaffirming the
well,
faith.
well, the Bereans actually were challenging Paul. They were challenging his authenticity. They were challenging his claims to authority. They were challenging the propositions that he was stating. So the Bible actually commends them for doing that. And the Bible says that we're supposed to love God with all of our minds, and it's just basic kind of common sense that to use your minds, you have to be able to think rationally and openly, and be able to question
No,
things.
that's one of the problems with common sense. It unfortunately it's neither. It's not very common and it's not very sensible most of the time.
Mhm.
I've often heard, well, they got book learning, but they ain't got no common sense. That was the philosophy of the people that raised me.
Mm.
Well, what the hell do them scientists know? They just study facts. I know in the core of my heart. That's common sense.
Yeah. Well, I also want to say, like, from my personal perspective, I used to argue with Christians a lot, and I used to challenge everything, every kind of biblical thing out there, and yeah, I've questioned God personally myself. Those are some of the most intimate times I've ever had with God, where I've kind of screamed and been frustrated and asked questions. And I used to struggle a lot with skepticism and doubts. And there was a time where I wasn't a believer, but I kind of wrestled, with all the claims of the Bible, and I didn't really want to believe in them. So I guess
Okay,
people
so
have those kinds of stories as well, where they do kind of a lot of research, and they inquire and they investigate, and they come out on the other side, and they say that their investigating and their critical thinking has led them to
yeah,
embrace faith.
the Lee Strobel lie,
Well, I
where
mean,
you can't show any verification that you were ever an unbeliever. Certainly not that you ever understood
well,
anything
I
about
can
the
introduce
science
you to
or
people that
philosophy.
I can
But
introduce you
let
to
me
people.
finish.
Yeah.
So then Lee Strobel comes up with this thing where he's doing this investigation, the exact same thing that you're talking about right now.
Mhm.
Let's reason with, let's ask questions, let's
Mhm.
evaluate whatever,
For sure.
except that it's one-sided. It's for confirmation bias. So he does this entire presentation where all he does is interview believers, believers only, believers exclusively, never one skeptic, and then take that to say that they have reasoned and that they've done the investigation and that they imagine that was being critical, but it's not. That's confirmation bias. It's very opposite. So
Well,
at no point does believing in God is believing in God required to have knowledge. Now, Muslims have made a similar argument, but of course, it has to be Muhammad. You have to believe their version of it, or you can't have knowledge. So how do you address that?
yeah.
They
Well,
also make the same argument you just did, that Islam gave birth to science and
mhm,
that the first scientists were all Muslim. How do you
mhm.
deal with that?
Yeah, no, that those are great questions. And so to be honest, so if you read through the scholarly literature, and one of my supervisors when I was going to school, his name was Peter Harrison. He was the former chair at the Oxford Department of Science and Religion, and he writes about this extensively. His predecessor, a guy named John Hedley Brooke, who was the former chair as well at Oxford for the Department of Science and Religion. There's a lot of literature out there, and they do bring up Islam a little bit. Islam did have a kind of a role, not so much for the kind of doctrinal issues, but because of they played a part in sort of scholarly integrating Aristotle back into kind of medieval literature. So Aristotle, up until kind of the 15th, 16th century, was kind of the dominant worldview. Everybody believed in Aristotelianism, and science was essentially based off of his ideas and also off of Ptolemy, the astronomer of the I don't know if he was 2nd century BC or 4th century. I can't remember what his time frame was, but he
We
was.
understand that scientific methodology wasn't really in practice until like the 18th or 19th century. I mean, and the process of peer review, for example, I don't think went
Mhm,
into practice until late
mhm,
in the 19th century. I could be wrong. I'm trying to do this off the top of my
for
head,
sure, yeah.
but you can't make a that you can't say that science began with any one person at any one time, because this was an incremental process
Mhm,
over centuries
right.
with different thinkers contributing to it until they finally accumulate up to this point. And maybe we're not done yet. But you can't say
Oh,
that science began
sure.
with. That's why I said you can go back from this range, from the Ionian Greeks up to the Enlightenment, where we finally get up to the point where we have experiments and where you have to have prior evidence. You can't just make assertions, because we call that dishonest, right? When you assert something to be true and you can't show the truth of it, that's called a lie. When you pretend to know things you don't know, when you express baseless speculation as if it was a matter of fact, those are lies from the scientific perspective. So everything that religion does would be considered a lie in a realm of science. If scientists spoke the way preachers do, they would immediately be ousted from their positions and discredited as frauds.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to tackle there, but I just want to highlight two things. Most historians and philosophers of science kind of agree that, what we call the scientific revolution, although most people agree that there was not just one revolution, and that science is kind of it's a complicated subject. That's why there's to this day people kind of disagree over what is science. Not even Christians and atheists, just in general, science is oftentimes hard to define. But most people will generally agree that what we call the scientific revolution began in the 16th century with people like Galileo, Kepler, Newton, Boyle, Pascal, many of these people, and Copernicus. And just to kind of highlight what the deciding factor was, I guess when you get back there, I'll read to you what an atheist philosopher had to say. But this is an Oxford philosopher named Michael Foster, and he writes this.
Just help me out here. Does it matter what an
Go
atheist philosopher had to say? Because one of the things that's really, really tedious, I know you said you're just getting into apologetics. The worst thing about apologetics is quote mining. On top of everything else that apologetics is, which is, by the way, the most dishonest position it is possible to have that is still legal. It's legal to be an apologist. You're a professional liar, but you're still legal. That's it, because that's all. So one of the worst things that apologists do is quote mining, taking some quote somebody said out of context. That one quote by itself appears to imply something other than, if you read the entire paragraph from that person, you would, or the context of the work that they're talking about, you would realize they're actually saying the very opposite.
Sure.
So
yeah, I agree with you.
Why do we need to go through this?
Definitely. But, first of all, I have been doing apologetics for a long time, and I'm just starting to kind of wanting to do this full time. But
why?
Because that's a different subject. But
no, why? I have to know, because for me, the primary motivation is to improve understanding. I want to understand the way things really are. And if I believe something that is not true, if I believe something that is incorrect, if I've been misled, if I bought into an urban legend, or if I read a study that maybe wasn't, that I thought was evidence, and then somebody else said, no, that person just made it up, or whatever, it's been discredited. You don't have to prove it wrong. I've already rejected it. Once I realized that there was never good enough reason to believe it in the first place, I've already stopped believing it. But to be an apologist, you have to know that what you're saying is not true and still say it anyway.
Well, we have differing versions of truth, right? So I don't think
do we? Well, okay, so here's mine. The truth is what the facts are, what we can show to be true, not whatever else we might assume or imagine beyond or instead of that. Good enough? So if I tell you that something's true, it's because I can show you the truth of it. Now, an apologist will claim absolute truth over things that are nothing but lies. They'll call it absolute truth. I can show you the truth of what I'm talking about. Apologists cannot. Okay.
Well, yeah, maybe I can just get back to my point here.
Originally, why would you? You haven't addressed that. Why would you want to be an apologist? You realize that faith is the most dishonest position it's possible to have, and the only way that it could possibly be less honest is to become a religious apologist. So why would you become a religious apologist?
So right now we were having kind of a good discussion, but you're turning it into more of an ad hominem kind of.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah. Well, it
It's not.
seems like you're just
You're defending a
attacking.
position where you are required to make false statements and where you are not allowed to admit certain truths.
That's not true at all.
Well, that's absolutely true. I've been doing this for a long time. I wrote a
think-
book on this, 440 pages
Right.
on the lies of creationism. Yeah, this is true. I can show it.
So your
One of the
standard
things that I would do
truth
to prove this point,
Aaron, is
I
your
can't
standard
prove
of
this
truth
point.
that you wrote a book on something, therefore it's true? Because that's what
my
you just
standard of
communicated
proof
to me.
is all of the evidence that I put in that book, which I'm
Right.
about to
Well,
give you a
I
smidgen of.
made a
To
proposition.
prove the point,
Right.
I'm giving you an option to prove the point.
Mhm.
Okay. On the issue of creationism versus evolution, for example,
Mhm.
name one, because I hear this all the time. Evolution is a fraud, right? Okay. Well, so name one scientist who, an evolutionary scientist, who ever lied in the act of promoting evolution over creationism. Quote the lie verbatim and show how you know that it was a lie, or how we can know that it was a lie. Now, I've been asking this for a long time, and I've never gotten an answer to that.
Mhm.
And you would have the burden of proof to show how we know that it's a lie, what the lie is verbatim, and all of that. And nobody's ever answered that. Now, on the other side of this, name a professional creationist. That's anybody who makes their money by advocating creation, who did not lie while promoting creationism over evolution. In this case, you don't have a burden to prove. All you got to do is give me the name. I'll show you where they lied, what they lied about, what the lie was verbatim, and how we know that they knew that it was false when they said it.
Okay, so I just wanted to share a simple.
So there were no instances. There was no evolutionary biologist who ever lied in the act of promoting evolution over creationism.
Mm.
There was never a single apologist who did not lie in the act of promoting creation over evolution. Never one. Every one of them lied. Every one of them misrepresented the data quite deliberately.
So, Aaron,
and we can prove that.
Yeah, thanks. I think what you're doing is you're conflating a differing opinion with a lie, which is also going back to what I said. That's an ad hominem attack, right? Because you're claiming that because people.
But it's not an ad hominem.
Believe in something
I said
different.
We can show that it wasn't, that what they said was not true. And I can give you specific
I can
examples.
point to evolutionists who have deliberately lied in the motivation of trying to embellish evolutionary claims. But I think.
Can you meet the challenge to name the scientist?
Yeah, Ernst Haeckel.
Quote the lie verbatim.
Lying. See what
name
you
the
may
scientist.
not know.
Quote, excuse me. Name the scientist. Quote the lie verbatim, and show me how we know that it was a lie. Go ahead.
Okay, so Aron, we're jumping right to many different topics.
So you can't do that, or you can.
I can tell you, Ernst Haeckel was well known. He was
who
one
did
of
not
Darwin's
lie.
First.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Ernst Haeckel, who drew. He identified two photos that were the same image in his mind that looked identical. I think it was dogs and humans, and he copied the same image for both, for the first edition of his book and only for the first edition for his book, because he said they looked the same at that stage anyway. And that's true. That is actually the case. He should still have drawn his own individual drawing, which he did for all subsequent editions. And importantly, when we come up with microphotograph technology, that bore him out. So it showed he was correct in that. So that's the answer everybody gives, because it's the only one anybody knows, and that's it, and that's all. Now, on the creationisms, and it's wrong. You don't meet the challenge. Now, on the creationism side,
it's not wrong, but go ahead.
Yes, it is wrong. I just gave you the reasons why. How we know that that it was not a lie, and how microphotographs still bear him out to this day. Now, on the creationism side, you can't show anything, and I'll give you a little bit extra. You can't name a creationist, a professional creationist, who did not lie, because, as I said, I will bear the burden of proof. I'll show you exactly where they lied, what they lied about, quote the lie verbatim, and show how we know that it was a lie. Right. But I'll give you something else. This will be a little bit easier. On the issue of creationism, show me one thing, one actual fact that we can both verify to be true, that is also positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with creation over evolution. Go.
Okay, so you keep lobbing new challenges at me, but I thought we were
You
going to
can't meet the old one. Why not move to a new one?
one point, right? And the
Okay,
point
you couldn't meet that challenge, and you can't meet
I
this
can
new
meet
one
all those
either. Is that what you're
challenges,
saying?
but what I was prepared to do was to speak about how God is necessary for knowledge and science, and that's kind of what I
Right,
was
and we've
getting to.
already trashed that one
No,
because
you
he's
didn't.
not.
You
Yeah,
didn't
yeah, he
trash it
is.
at all. I was
In
about
what
to.
way? In
No,
what way does pretending an imaginary being exists have any impact in what knowledge we can demonstrate?
well, I was just about to share that with you, but on a
Okay,
side.
explain how I can't know what a material is made of, or whether footprints imply that somebody walked here, or in some way I have to pretend there's a magic imaginary being in order to
So
know anything. Go ahead, explain
yeah,
that.
so on a side note, quote mining, I agree with you that if you're quoting things out of context and you're quoting one line from a writer. Oh, looks like my computer's going to die here. If you're quoting one line from a writer and you're ignoring the other kind of main point that they're making, I agree with you that that's disingenuous and it shouldn't be happening. But on the other aspect of things, sorry, just let me plug my computer in here. But on the other aspect of things, if you work in the humanities, people in general, in any kind of academic circles, you have to quote sources, right? When you're making a point or when you're arguing for a certain proposition, you do have to quote experts in the field, people like you said who've been peer reviewed and who have the respect of the academic community. So that's kind of what I was hoping to do. Was I'm making a point or a proposition here that science was essentially founded on the Christian doctrine of creation. So I was going to.
Right, but we don't have any citation from doctrine. There's no part of doctrine
Well,
that
I'm
supports
getting
that.
to that, right?
There's no history that supports that. We
So,
know that the actual history contradicts that. So that part's done.
so I'm telling
And now
you,
and
like you keep interrupting me, but I'm telling you that
okay,
there's notable historians and most historians of
who can be
science
quoted out of
acknowledge
context as saying things they didn't really imply.
this is not out of context at all. No, you can
Okay,
read these citations for yourself.
wander us down the wrong rabbit hole, knowing that you can't show one creationist who didn't lie. That's important, and more important than that, you can't show, and that we need to know. I need an admission from you on this. You can't show one actual fact that we can both show to be true that is positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with creationism over evolution. You already understand. I can show you truckloads of facts in evidence for evolution. You've got nothing for creation. Do you understand that?
Well, I'm trying to stick to the point that I'm trying to make here.
Can you answer that with a clear yes or no?
I have lots that I can give you evidence.
But you can't give me anything now. Show me one actual fact.
Are you afraid
that we
of
can
me
both
sharing
show to be true?
Or what?
Do I need to start? Do I need to go through the list first?
I'm just trying to get
because I'll tell you what. This is what we can do. I can list facts and evidence for evolution, and then when it's your turn, you can say, "Well, I came prepared to talk about something else," and then I'll list another fact and evidence for evolution, and then we'll hear the next excuse from you as to why you still don't have anything in your list.
So I have no difficulty discussing empirical or physical evidence for you for creationism with you, but
you do seem to have that difficulty.
No. You have a difficulty with listening to the point that we were supposed to discuss, right? Which was, is God necessary for science? And I'm
right, and we clarified that in the first couple of minutes. Shut it down. You've got nothing. And one of the things you would have to have in order to have anything to talk about is that first fact that I asked you for.
So you asked me to explain a point probably 20 minutes ago, and I just want to get to that point, right? This is kind of the overarching point we can get into finer details, but this is kind of what I was trying to express. And this is why I say it's kind of funny that you don't even know how this is kind of the current research in academic literature, whether you're a theist or not. But people generally tend to acknowledge the foundational role that Christian doctrine played in the birth of modern science.
No, not doctrine. Not doctrine.
No,
Christian
it's doctrine.
played no.
It's doctrine.
No.
It's clearly
Show me
doctrine.
citations. Give me the citations then.
Sure. Yeah, let's read it out. So this is M.B. Foster, right? Okay.
Because the conversation that I've had many times is people will say that, hey, did you know that Sir Isaac Newton was a creationist? Yeah, he's one of those few pre-Darwinian scientists who would actually qualify as a creationist. However, Christianity, his creationism, contributed nothing to anything he ever discovered or postulated that he's being remembered for now. Nothing. Not a thing.
Okay, so this is what John Hedley Brooke, who is, like I said, he's
Another
a well-respected
okay.
historian and philosopher of science.
Quote mines is all you got. Got it. That's the standard apologist fare.
This is not, like I said, I explained what quote mining was to you. This is not.
Yeah, I know, and that's what you're going to show me now.
I'm making a point, and I'm backing that up with sources. Probably the highest.
Yeah, you said that doctrine supported this.
Yes.
I said, okay, well, if that were the case, then doctrine would say, and so you don't have any doctrine. You have a quote mine from some scientist that is not. You might notice that this scientist is not being quoted in the Bible.
Yeah,
so you're going to make a claim about what the Bible does. You're going to say the Bible says things it doesn't say, and the only way you can prove what the Bible says is by going to some other scientist who is not quoted in the Bible.
Yeah,
just so you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm full aware of what I'm doing, but
not quoting the Bible. You're not giving me a place where doctrine allows this. You are not allowed to experiment. You're not allowed to come up with a contrary position. You are strictly prohibited from coming up with a contrary position.
Not at all. No.
Absolutely, yes. Thou shalt not put the Lord thy God to the test. If you don't believe, you're damned. That's it.
So you've
made
a number
there
of
is no option.
Errors.
There is no option wherein you could be allowed into heaven because you had justifiable reason for not believing, that you performed experiments, that you did the research, and you came up with something other than the required belief. You can't be saved. You're sent to hell. That's true. That's all. Done. That's why we established this in the first 5 minutes. So Christian doctrine did not and could not have created science.
So you're making
and believing in God does not have anything to do with whether we can know things. You haven't even attempted either of these points. You've tried to go off in other directions.
You've cut me off about 30 times, Aron, so it's kind of hard to do
Okay, fine. I'll just sit back here and let you ramble.
Okay, so what I did want to say, though, before I discuss this, is that you're making a very serious hermeneutical error because you're conflating.
No, I'm not.
I'm not conflating. Let me finish. You don't even know what I'm going to say.
You're ignoring the point.
No, you don't even know what I'm going to say right
so
now. You have no idea what I'm going to say.
It doesn't matter. You're accusing me of something I'm not doing.
You're conflating. You're conflating.
I'm not conflating anything.
The blasphemy of the Holy Spirit.
Stop accusing me. I'm right. You're wrong. Stop accusing me.
Sure.
Now,
okay.
Go on if you can without telling me that I'm doing things I'm not doing.
Okay. I just want to say one thing, though, that you're conflating the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit.
I'm not conflating anything.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit is not equatable to challenging or asking for evidence. That's kind of what you're doing. You're saying that we're not allowed to ask questions.
You're accusing me of something I'm not doing.
Not allowed
Stop
to challenge.
doing that.
Well,
Stop accusing me of things I'm not doing.
Right.
Under what circumstance can someone come to the conclusion that there is no God, that the Bible is not true, that is not the Word of God, and yet still be allowed into heaven? Is there a circumstance like that?
Well, in that case, the person doesn't believe in heaven. So I don't know what you're
right. So how could they have performed the science, been convinced that the doctrine is wrong, and still avoid hell? Is there a way to do that?
So hell is a metaphysical reality that you're saying. See,
It's not a reality at all.
here's the conflation.
Hell is a contradiction
Your
of
claim
God.
was originally that people are not allowed to question, right? In a strictly
So
rational,
under what
critical
circumstance
thinking sense.
could an atheist get into heaven?
An atheist
you
doesn't
Catholic?
believe in. That's not what we're talking. We're not talking
Right.
about the
An atheist doesn't
requirements
believe in
for
heaven, but that's not the question, was it? Can someone perform the experiments, do the research, and come to the conclusion that there is no God and still be saved?
So you're jumping to a completely different
That's
topic.
a yes or a no question.
Your original
Is the answer
claim
yes,
was that
or is it
people are
no?
not allowed to think critically about the Bible.
Okay,
right?
so
That God does not like that.
Can you
That's
think
not the claim
critically
you're
about the
making
Bible? Can you
now.
come up with another conclusion? Can you decide that the wealth of your research and your studies and all of this have shown that there is no God? Can that person who comes to that conclusion get to heaven? It's a yes or a no. Pick one.
So obviously,
The answer is not so. It was yes or it's no. Can an atheist get into heaven by doing scientific research that convinces them that there is no God? Can they get into heaven? Is that yes, or is that anything other than yes?
It's not. Again, it's like asking me.
So the answer is not yes.
It's like asking me how
so
high
you're
a square
not
basketball
allowed.
bounces.
So that contradicts what you're saying. So you're done. That contradicts what you're saying. You are not.
No, I'm telling you that
do
as
scientific
a
research,
critical thinker, God is not.
But you're not allowed to do critical thinking because you can't question whether God exists. You
Yes,
can't come up with the answer that God exists or God does not exist because you can't question the Holy Spirit. You can't say the Holy Spirit doesn't exist. So there you go. Your initial point refuted. What else can we do?
Look, this is what I'm saying. The blasphemy of the Spirit is not doubting or having questions. The blasphemy.
Yes, it is. If you come to the conclusion that God does not exist, you are going heaven or hell. Which is it? Pick one.
But
the answer is not so. The answer does not begin with so.
If you choose to believe,
say either heaven or say hell. Which one is it? Because that's one of the problems. You only get a dichotomy. You get infinite judgment, which is completely unjust, based on nothing more than what or whether you believed. So, do you believe the God of the Bible, and you can be forgiven and for whatever sins, and thus go to heaven? Or you've done your scientific research, you've concluded God doesn't exist, therefore you're going to hell. Is there any other option? Can somebody do the science, as you say, Christian doctrine led to science? Can they do the science and then do as so many formerly Christian scientists have done and come to the conclusion that God is not true or that creationism is not true? Can they still get into heaven? So,
okay, you're implying there that the science is what has propelled people away from God, but there are also many scientists.
Yes, and I can show the reasons why.
There are many scientists who say that the science leads them towards God. So again, I'm
right.
saying
There are many scientists who have put their religious beliefs ahead of science and have walked away from science and have contradicted science and have professionally lied against science. And I have a long list of names: Kurt Wise, Andrew Snelling, Pyridom. There's a whole bunch of them that have given away their souls, for a better lack of terms, and signed the document for Answers in Genesis that they will now, from here on, lie about science in order to conclude young Earth creationism.
Well, again, you're conflating lying, which is...
I'm not conflating anything. If you say that things are true that are not evidently true, and you can't show that they're true, you can't show the truth of it, and then neither can you know if it's true because you can't demonstrate that knowledge.
So
that is a lie.
So these people,
is that the part you're having problems with?
These people believe that what they're saying is true, therefore they're not lying.
No, they don't.
Yes, they
Andrew
do.
Snelling, for example, himself personally dated the Kungura Formation in Australia in the billions of years old. He published in mainstream geology journals, and he explained all the intricate processes on how he determined these age. At the same time that he published that, he was also publishing to the organization that would become Answers in Genesis, wherein he obviously falsely stated that everything was the result of a global flood and that the earth was only 6,000 years old. He contradicted himself in two different documents at the same time, in the same month. So here's somebody who is professionally lying, forsaking the reality because he has a make-believe that he wants to hold to.
Well, I haven't read that paper, but from what I know about Andrew Snelling, is that he probably wasn't purposely trying to, again, I don't know the paper, but knowing Andrew Snelling, not personally, I don't think that he was deliberately trying to say that the Earth is billions of years old and it's also 6,000 years old.
He's not deliberately dating the Kungura Basin at billions of 2-point-something billion years old. He wasn't doing
He
that
might have
deliberately.
employed those.
Did he fall down and accidentally write that?
Well, he might have employed those methods, but to claim,
publish
as
it
you are, that
in a
he's
mainstream
lying
theological journal?
deliberately. Well, many creation scientists still publish in secular journals, but usually they kind of clarify their aims and purposes. I don't know Snelling's purpose in this. Perhaps he was lying.
His purpose is because he likes make-believe.
Well,
I've interviewed a number of people, a number of scientists even, who've decided that they want to believe in God, and it doesn't matter. Now, most of them have been honest enough that they will still hold to what they know to be true about evolution, about genetics, about geology, about the age of the Earth, all of that. They will still hold to what they can demonstrate to be true. Andrew Snelling is one of those rare examples where he would lie about what he knew was false.
So again, you have to talk about the actual instance that you're referring to, and I'm not familiar with that. So,
okay, then give me this, because this matters more than you want to admit. If there's any credence to creationism at all, then there has to be. I'm going to give you a long list of facts and evidence for evolution, and you will deny them because you're an apologist. But the job of an apologist is to deny any and all realities that contradict what you want to make believe. Now, I can go through my list, or I can ask you for the one thing, just one. I can go through a list of several things. I can go through myriad things. Facts and evidence supporting evolution against creationism. Give me one actual fact, something we can both show to be true, that is positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with creationism. Go.
Okay. So this is going to lead us down a lot of rabbit holes. I can give you lots of those, which I do want to.
But you can't give me one. You can say that you can give me lots.
Look, you can carbon date dinosaur bones. You can genetic information.
Wait. What?
Soft tissue.
What?
No,
what?
I'm going to hit you with.
What?
You want evidence?
Wait. What? Wait, one at a time now. Did you say you can carbon date dinosaur bones?
Yes, many people have carbon dated.
You know that I know better than that, right? You know that I have interviewed a handful of paleoclimatologists, people who actually do radiometric dating. I've been in the field with people who actually do radiometric dating at paleontological sites. No, you cannot carbon date dinosaur bones. No. I said a fact, something we can both show to be true, not an empty assertion you made up that I can immediately prove to be false. No, not a lie. Give me a truth. Something we can both show to be true.
You're like, I don't know. You're part of atheists' kind of biggest weakness is that they're very, for lack of a better word, arrogant. They think that you
then show me a cited study where they use carbon dating for dinosaur bones. Give it to me.
Okay, well, that's not what I have prepared right now. But
okay, so you cannot admit then that you cannot admit that you cannot show you cannot because you can't give me the citation because it didn't happen. But you can lie about it, but you can't give me the citation because you know it didn't happen.
Well,
they don't
I can give you the citation.
They don't use carbon dating on dinosaur bones unless we're talking about birds, and I doubt that you're going to include birds, right?
These?
Are we going to include birds?
Okay. So
you don't like yes or no questions very much.
Well, because
would you include birds within dinosaurs?
That are not simple. Like you're making about.
Okay, would you include birds in the category of dinosaurs?
And to give a genuine answer, I have to cover a lot of ground, and I can't do that.
No, you don't. I asked for one fucking study. How easy is that? You said you made the bald-ass false lie assertion that we can carbon date dinosaur bones. No, we fucking can't. I've already talked to the experts about this. I've been in the field with experts about this. No, you fucking can't. So you've been called, and now that you cannot produce one single example, just simply make do what an apologist cannot do. Admit you fucked up. You
No,
shouldn't have
I
said what
didn't
you
mess
can't
up,
back up.
See,
Tell me that
here's your thing.
tell me that you shouldn't have said that when you can't show the truth of it. Let me hear it.
Here's your problem, Aron. You have an
Okay, so you
epistemic
cannot
bar
admit,
that is very
you
shallow.
cannot admit
Can I
that
explain
you
this very
can't show
quickly?
a single
Can I
citation
just explain
for
one
carbon
thing very
dating
quickly to you?
dinosaur bones.
I don't know if you
Is that-
know anything about how epistemology works or how we understand what we
Okay.
know, but your epistemic bar is very low. It's very shallow.
All right, so
think that if
you
just
can
let me
make
finish,
assertions.
I let you talk
You can
a
make
whole
empty
lot. I just want to say
assertions
one thing.
that when
Your
called,
epistemic
you
bar,
can't show the
your
truth of it,
standard for what is
and it's
true
my
and
fault.
what is not
It's because
true
of my
is
epistemology.
extremely shallow.
You're lying. I'm calling
No,
you out.
Aron,
You can't back up the lie, and that's my fault because my epistemology is
So
poor.
here's where your pride is really kicking in.
My pride has fuck all to do this.
No, it's
You are a liar, and
No,
you
I'm
can't
not.
back up the lie you just
See,
told.
your
You admit that you cannot show a single citation from any peer-reviewed journal of anybody using carbon dating for dinosaur bones. Admit you can't cough up the evidence you needed to back that lie you just told.
This is why I say you.
So you can't admit that you just lied to me.
No, I didn't lie to you.
Then show me the citation.
If I can speak for more than
show
10
me the
seconds,
citation.
If I can speak for more than 10
do you need
seconds,
5 minutes? Do you need 5 minutes to get it?
You know, you're acting like, for lack of a better word, you reason like a child, right?
Okay, blame me. Blame me, but that you can't back up your bullshit. That's entirely my fault. Okay, it's my fault that you say things that are not true.
And, hey,
and you
I'll make a
can't
video
defend.
about this if you want. I will provide evidence. But here's what I'm saying: is that
Provide-
your bar for what you think is true or
How much
false?
do you need time? Do you
just
need
let me
time to
finish.
get this?
Let me
Do we need to
finish, please.
reschedule this call?
No, I want to finish what I'm saying because you keep cutting me off.
when you come up with the citation that shows that we can do carbon dating on dinosaur bones, should we continue the conversation then?
No, I want to finish.
Is there ever going to be a point when you have the integrity to say, well, you know what? I can't actually find any peer-reviewed. Nobody's ever
just accusing people of lying doesn't actually prove your point.
Oh yeah, you know what proves my point? Your inability to defend yourself.
Look, I will provide evidence if that's. I will provide evidence. But what
show
I'm
me
saying,
the citation.
I'm getting back to a deeper issue here.
Show me the citation.
Your understanding of what is true and what is false is quite
show
shallow.
Me the citation. I said
that
give me an actual fact that we can both show to be true. You gave me a bullshit falsehood that we can both show to be false. That doesn't count. It has to be something we both show to be true. Now, if you can't show me and you're not honest enough to admit that you can't show me a citation, then show me some other fact. Because you went through a small list there, really rapid fire. Let's go to the next bullshit lie that you can't defend. What was the next one in your list?
Well, Aron, there's no point in discussing anything with you.
What's the next bullshit assertion? What's the next thing that we cannot,
Aron,
that we can both show to be
no
false?
Point in talking. It's
that
like
you just said was true.
Do you know that?
Right,
it's like
right.
Talking to a
so
little
you
kid.
said that we can carbon date dinosaur bones. No, we can't. You can't back that up. You haven't the integrity to back it up or admit that you were wrong when you shouldn't have said that. So let's move up to the next bullshit up. You blame me for being a child all you want to. No. What was the next bullshit item on your list that you can't back up?
There's no point in talking to you because
you're
not even letting me answer a simple question. Right?
I did ask you a simple question. You refused to answer it. Now what?
No, you weren't letting me answer what I was saying.
Okay. All right. Let's go back so I can let you answer.
Show
me the citation that shows that we can
point.
Show me the citation that shows that we can carbon date dinosaur bones. I'll give you the time to answer that. Google it if you need to. Show me that paper.
You know that. Okay. Without kind of resorting to ad hominem attacks, I'm trying to explain to you that your definition and your understanding of science is actually quite limited and quite shallow. You think
so I have a science degree. Do you have a science degree?
Okay.
Do you have a science degree?
Perhaps you can let me finish, right?
Do you have a science degree?
Perhaps you can let me finish.
Do you have a science degree?
We can go back and forth all day long.
Do you have a science degree?
We can go back and forth all day long.
Okay, I guess
we're
done.
Let me finish?
And there's no reason to even air this. So thank you
for
for wasting my time entirely. Lying to me and wasting my time for an hour, it was not appreciated. I would much rather broadcast this, but since you can't do anything but lie, then you've wasted my time and my money. I don't appreciate it.
I don't know why you're thinking everything because people disagree, they're lying to you.
Because you are full of shit. You just told me that you can carbon date dinosaurs. No, you can't. If you were honest, you would be able to show me that paper, but you know you can't because no such paper exists. You know you're full of shit. You just lied to me again.
Okay.
You've lied to me since the beginning of this
Aron,
thing. All you do is lie because you're a professional.
Nobody's lied to you.
You're not a professional. You're a wannabe apologist. So you're lying even about that. All you want to do is lie. That's it. That's all. We don't have anything to talk about.
Nobody's lied
Show
to
me
you.
something we can show to be true.
Aron,
Can you show me anything? Anything at all?
If you
give me a list of one thing that we can both show to be true, not a bullshit assertion that we can both immediately prove to be false. Show me that one thing we can both show to be true that also supports creationism over evolution.
Look, I've by the way, I'm recording this as well, so
you can't show anything.
Why?
Not one thing, not a single thing from any field of science. Nothing.
So,
is that an admission? Is that an admission of your failure?
I can show lots, and here's what I'll say.
Show me lots. Okay, show me. Start with what was the first one? Give me the first one.
Like, can you let me talk for 10 seconds?
What's the first one?
Can you let me talk for 10 seconds uninterrupted?
Okay.
I will give you evidence for carbon dating in dinosaur bones. I will cover that in a later discussion. We can talk about that.
But you're not going to do it now.
Or I can cover it in my own video, and you can respond to that. And
I'm not going to respond to you.
Or you don't have to.
If all you're going to do is lie to me and waste my time and make assertions about things we can.
Why is it lying when I believe something that's different from you? That's what
because you believe shit you already know is false.
I don't know it's false at all.
Yeah, you just said that we can carbon date dinosaur bones. No, we can't.
And I sincerely believe that. So,
if you come back when you have data, let's do something isolated, right? Pick out something you can actually defend. Here's the challenge. Show me one actual fact we can both show to be true that is positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with creationism over evolution. I've got a long-ass list, and I can provide peer-reviewed studies for all of it. It's exhaustive. I could spend all day, and it's not an exaggeration, I could literally spend all day going through the list of evidence, the facts of evidence, or the facts in evidence for evolution. And we will spend all day listening to your excuses about why you can't come up with one thing that supports creationism instead.
Okay. Well, again, see, I guess if I could just explain.
You got nothing?
No.
You got not one example? Not one exception?
Something quickly. Can I just explain something?
Do you have a single exception?
I have lots.
Am I right?
I have lots.
You have lots. Give me one.
No, I want to explain something to you first.
No. Give me one. If you're going to tell me you have lots, that's more bullshit because all you've done is lie to me.
No.
So give me one,
Aron,
or you're lying again.
Okay, I'm not lying. I thought we were going to have a respectful conversation that you
give me one,
talk and I could talk and we could go back and forth.
One.
But see, this is not a respectful.
The fact that birds are dinosaurs is a fact in evidence for evolution. The fact that we can prove in every aspect definitively that birds are dinosaurs, that's a fact in favor of evolution. Likewise, the fact that humans are a subset of apes and that this was recognized even a century before Darwin by Christian creationists is another fact in support of evolution. Would you like more, or is it now time for you to come up with a bullshit excuse about why you can't come up with a single fact, or can I go back over the list of my evidence?
What I want
the intermediate species that were predicted by Darwin, should we put that in the list of facts in evidence for evolution, and then wait for the crickets of you being unable to provide anything for creationism?
So, Aron, if you
so you got crickets. So you don't have an answer.
Again, I thought we could have a respectful dialogue where we talk.
But you have to respect truth. You have to respect truth. If you don't respect truth, then how can we have a conversation?
So that's your understanding of truth, right? And you're not the
facts
arbiter.
Are, right? The truth is what the facts are.
Look,
for you, truth is whatever bullshit lie you can convince some rube of.
You're just
projecting your own. It has to be something we can both show to be true.
This is not a
show me something we can both show to be true.
Right, Aron? You know
show
that,
me
right?
something we can both show to be true. What can we both show to be true?
Okay.
Give me something that's actually true. I gave you how birds are dinosaurs and humans are apes, and how we have observed evolution, and we have the genetic similarity to the other apes and other monkeys and so forth. I can go a long list. Give me a list of one. Give me one actual fact supporting creation.
Aron, you've made a number of false claims yourself. You know,
no,
that,
I haven't.
right?
I haven't made one.
Yeah, you have.
Tell me one thing. Let's focus on one thing. What false claim have I made?
Okay, well, you said that Darwin predicted Archaeopteryx, right? Did you get that citation yet for me?
No, I haven't.
Right.
Because it
That's
may,
one
it may
false
not have
claim
been
you
in his
made
book.
right there. You can't back up what you
That's
said.
not a false claim.
That's number one, right?
That's not a false claim, because you asked me about this, and I referred you to a number of other sources, and I referred you to a number of other sources that all claimed that he said that. They just didn't give the documentation for where he said that.
There's no original source for that. If there is, I'd be happy to see it. Second of all, you just claimed Linnaeus, who you were referring to.
And also Huxley said the same thing.
No, I know Huxley said that as well, but you said Darwin predicted that in The Origin of Species, which he didn't, obviously.
That's where I thought he did.
Yeah. So
but as
all
I
I'm
said,
saying
we
here,
look it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, what I'm saying is that I'm trying to raise the discussion to a different.
You're trying to lower the discussion to a different level.
I'm talking about
One where you don't have
epistemology, because you think that peer review is the all-seeing eye that can decide what is true and what is not true.
No, it is not. Peer review is when you make an assertion and other people who have expertise in that field can verify.
So I made an assertion to you.
Does this line up, or is this contradicted?
So I made an assertion to you that is peer reviewed, and you would not even accept that Christian doctrine played a foundational role in the birth of modern science. I
agreed with you that correcting creationism, the falsehoods of creationism, did in fact have a foundational
would not even let me share the academic literature on that subject. Okay. You're trying to
tell you what, let's do this in email then. When you can cough up something you can verify to be true, then we'll have a discussion about that.
See, that's like arguing with a kid about what color the sky is when they got.
So you can't show anything, nothing at all.
Let's just.
Do you also deny that Darwin predicted? Because I can show you where this one is, where Darwin predicted the missing link that hasn't been missing since 1974. Are you aware of that one?
Look, I can come back at you with the transitional fossils. I can come back at you with the
I can come back at you on transitional fossils too, because we've got lists of thousands of them. I'm kind of an expert on this. So do you want to go there? Is that the topic?
We can go into a million different places, but that's not a rational discussion.
Okay, so pick one. Pick one thing where you think you can defend yourself.
Aron, was not about these arguments. I can get ready for that as well if you want. I can talk about one subject.
Well. What do you mean as well?
Fossils, be it carbon dating
when you
dinosaurs,
say as well, that means you were
talk
prepared
about
for this
any
one.
of those things.
Prepared for this one.
I was prepared
falsely
to talk about
accused
one
me of
thing
making false statements that I did not make.
And I was about to move on to other things, right?
Other false statements that you can't defend. I asked you repeatedly,
false statements.
One thing that we can both show to be true that is supportive of creation over evolution.
Based on our discussions thus far, I can point to at least 4 or 5 falsehoods that you've submitted in our dialogue.
No, you can't. No, you can't. Nor can you answer the question I just asked. That's why you just dodged.
I'm not dodging, but it's like you're trying
to name me one thing we can both show to be true that is also indicative of creation over evolution. Name one thing. Let's go. What is it?
See, here's the thing, Aron. Maybe just let me talk. Just let me talk for 10 seconds.
Nothing.
There's lots.
Why don't you admit?
I believe the absence of transitional fossils is a huge argument for creationism.
Except that we don't have an absence. We have a plethora.
And here's where we're getting to the meat of the issue: is that you have a differing view.
You want to argue the transitional fossils?
And I have a differing view of what counts as evidence.
Do you want to argue the transitional fossils? Is that the one you want me to disprove you on?
So, Aron, I've looked at all this stuff, and I can teach you a thing or two on transitional fossils.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Is that
the one do you want to argue about transitional fossils?
Look, no, let's go to your
conversation about
evidence for evolution that you personally said
that was a yes or no question.
Let's go to your favorite thing, which is molecular phylogeny. You think that proves evolution?
That was the first evidence of evolution. That was the requirement that there must be evolution by somebody who didn't have a concept of evolution. He had an enigma. Carolus Linnaeus could not explain this situation because he was a creationist, and what he discovered contradicted creation. And so Darwin answered Linnaeus' dilemma. So yeah, that is evidence of. Now, I'm not going to say that any one thing proves anything, because proof is a mathematic thing, but evidence in favor of the fact that we can both show to be true, that is positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant
Sorry,
with
did you just say
evolution
that
over
Linnaeus
creationism.
talked about molecular phylogeny? Because I said
No,
molecular phylogeny,
he didn't
and you
know
brought
about
up Linnaeus.
genetics. Neither did Darwin. But
Yeah, so
Linnaeus
why
knew,
would you bring up Linnaeus? Because I said what you believe is the
because
strongest
it's
evidence for
taxonomy.
evolution is molecular
And
phylogeny. I'm
right,
telling you
and
that molecular
taxonomy was
phylogeny
invented by
disproves
and
evolution.
And taxonomy was invented by Carolus Linnaeus, who realized that it creates this nested hierarchy of an evolutionary tree. Now, he didn't know about evolution. He didn't know about genetics, but he
He didn't
understood.
believe in it
I
either.
said this to you before, that in order to say whether something is possible, we have to have a precedent or parallel or verified phenomenon indicating that such possibility exists. Linnaeus discovered that. He had the verified phenomenon indicating that this must be the case, though he couldn't explain it. He had to wait 100 years for Darwin to come along to explain it. And Darwin didn't have a complete explanation because he didn't know about genetics either. So it was several years later before Mendel and de Vries came up with genetics and mutations to explain that.
So again, I told you my original point here was we can get into all these lesser detailed arguments about certain physical stances, what have you, molecular phylogeny, transitional fossils, Linnaeus, whatever. I was trying to get to the bigger issue here, which was your sort of incoherent stance on how you come to believe what is true. You've made a number of errors discussing
No, I didn't.
the Bible.
No, I didn't.
And you claim people are lying when they simply believe something that's
when they're
different from
clearly
you.
when you personally are making statements you can't back up.
Well,
Yes,
we can
that's called
replay
lying.
the tape, right?
We can, and I will,
Yeah, for sure.
and we'll show that you are making statements you can't back up.
You claim that people were not allowed to challenge or ask questions. You said that
That's correct, and you verified that there's no way that an atheist could get into heaven. So I was right. So
well, if
was
there is
right.
no God, then there is no heaven. So you've got nothing to worry about.
Right.
Then,
So
right.
but it doesn't matter because
claim.
heaven is your manufacturer, and according to your theology, you said the obviously demonstrably false statement that somebody could follow the scientific method, conclude there is no God, and then in science you are rewarded for overturning the status quo. You get the Nobel Prize, you get the Templeton Prize in this particular case, and you get the $1 million check that comes with it. But according to your theology, if you don't come to the conclusion that God exists, if you come to the conclusion that God does not exist, then you're damned to hell. So I was right. That's not a false statement. When I'm right, it's not false.
So again, I think, and I've said this before, and I'm not trying to be harsh, but
I know you keep repeating the same stupid bullshit, and you can't realize when you're wrong all the time, because that's what faith means.
No.
So
it's okay.
Are you able, at this point or at any point in the future, can you come forth and bring to me one actual fact that we can both show to be true that is positively indicative of creationism over evolution? Can you? Yes or no?
Look, Aron, I'll
That's a yes or no question. Can you meet the minimum criteria, or can you not?
I'll raise the stakes. You come to me with something you think makes evolution true, and I'd love to have a conversation.
I already did. I gave you a short list. I can continue with a much longer list.
And I told you that I would
you need to
discuss
come up with one thing. Can you come up with one thing to match my long list? Can you come up with one thing?
I can come up with a dozen. I can give you a dozen. How
Can
about
you come up with, give me one now?
Look, okay, I can give you
one.
Okay, I've already mentioned three. I'll mention.
No,
those
you've already mentioned only one, and it was that we can carbon date dinosaurs. No, we can't. So you mentioned
I
one lie.
a lot.
You mentioned one thing we can both immediately prove to be false because you couldn't come up with a citation either. You can't justify the bullshit assertion you just made. Is there anything we can both show to be true, not false, true?
So here's
that
the
supports
problem.
creationism.
You won't let me. You'll ask me questions, and then you won't give me the ability to answer that. So in this case,
here was it. Can you show me? I'll just make it really clear. Can you show me? Cite one actual fact we can both show to be true, not false, like carbon dating dinosaurs. True, we can both show to be true, that is positively indicative of creationism over evolution. Yes or no?
Yeah, but again, it's pointless.
Yeah, but again, but you can't do it now, can you?
I
You can't give me one example. We can't even end this on your promise that you're going to be able to produce one thing.
The reason that
is there a thing you can present?
Yeah, lots. Okay.
Give me one thing. What?
Why should I give you anything when you don't let me explain myself?
We're done. You're not going to get any attention from me ever again. You can't name one fucking thing. Tell me now one thing you can come back and show me later.
Look,
one thing.
You won't let me finish my thoughts. There's no point in answering you, right?
Then why did you ask me? You can't back up the bullshit assertions. Why did you ask me?
Look, I thought
you can't answer that question. I asked you for one thing. If you said, "Oh, I can give you lots," then you can give me one now.
Yeah,
I have lots back there somewhere. You can give me one now. I have lots back there. I gave you 5 already.
Look, I've already mentioned 3 evidences for young Earth.
You gave one. You gave one that was not a fact. You gave one
back and play the videotape.
You gave one falsehood, which was that we can carbon date dinosaurs. No, we can't. That's it. That's all you gave.
Aaron, I mentioned 3 to you, right? Let's get that clear. Right?
What was the other 2?
See, I don't want to get into this because the moment I say something,
you're
not going to let me. You're not going to let me share my thoughts on it.
I just asked you what the other 2 are.
There's no point even discussing.
Can you give them or not?
I can, of course.
What are the other 2?
I can, of course, but this is not a rational conversation.
What are the other 2?
You can replay the tape yourself, but I'm not going to engage because you're not letting me.
Century now.
You're not letting.
What are the other 2?
Look, Aaron, if you want to get a moderator to come speak,
you can't get one. You can't get the other 2.
You won't tell me anything so that I have my time to share and you have your time to share.
If you could show me one, if you could name one right now, it'd be worth getting a moderator, but you can't.
I gave you 3, but there's no point in sharing it because you don't let me talk.
Now. Give me them now.
Let me talk. So why should I dignify you?
I'm letting you talk. Give me those. Give me those 3.
You have not let me talk this entire discussion.
Yes, I gave you the question and you answered with I give you yes or no question. You give me
again. It's a principle of my own dignity that I don't want to answer somebody if they're not going to dignify my answer. Right.
Okay.
So I don't think
I dignified your answer. You gave nothing. You said you could give me lots.
That's not a rational response.
The rational response was I said, okay, give me a list of 1. You gave me, well, I could give you lots. Okay, give me 1. Well, I could give you lots. Well, let's hear the first one.
Like I said, I've mentioned 3 to you.
And what's the next bullshit excuse?
I've mentioned 3, but you didn't let me discuss even the first.
3? What are they?
Look, I've said it. We're going to go back and forth all night.
We are done. Good night. Good news. I'm tired of this. You wasted my time. You wasted my money. I wanted to broadcast this, and there's no point because there's nothing. You've got nothing, and so it costs me to have empty conversations with people that don't have anything to show. Good night, sir.
Well, Aaron, if you wanted to choose one.